You were expecting Alan Gray. Unfortunately, Alan, our MD, is indisposed, so I'm his stand-in, head of sales, George Euans. Got a colleague here that'll be doing some work later on in the presentation called James Palmer. Our subject is the public sector. Are you all public sector sellers too, suppliers of, businesses too? You're not. Let me come over this side. Okay. We like the public sector, and you'll find out the Due North story is a case study. Are you sure this is on, young man? I can't hear anything from it. However, I'm quite loud. You can hear me all right?
There should be a microphone on the desk.
There is?
Yeah, that's it.
I've got two. Always nice. We like the public sector. They generally buy more than any other business. They're a good buyer. I don't know if you've found that. We certainly have, and you'll find that story out a bit later on. They buy fairly. In fact, I had a phone call from a public sector this morning who I'm seeing next week. So I'll be reminding of that when I actually sit face-to-face with them. They must get the best deal, the public sector. It's not necessarily always the cheapest. And again, I'll be trying to remind this organisation next week of that part. They generally apply the MEAT principle, the most economically advantageous tender. And that's not always the lowest price. But generally speaking, they're looking for a combination of the quality of the service, the price, right through the whole contract life cycle, which is crucial for them. Government's committed to doing business with SMEs. Due North, the company that James and I represent, we're an SME. Our turnover's a couple of £1 million. We've got 25 people up in the northeast. We're definitely an SME. Have you heard of a document, ladies and gentlemen, called the Glover Report? One or two nods, but not a lot of confidence. The Glover Report was written by a lady called Anne Glover last year. I think it was published in December 2009. People think that that report was about a single portal, and I'll talk about portals later on. But the document's title was actually Accelerating the SME Engine. So if you're an SME, that report was written to try and create more business for you. It's working for us, and I hope after this there might be some ideas. So it's not just to give business, though. It's to create competition in an area and to trying to keep that competition locally so that if your company win an order, the people that work for that company get some cash from it as well. They get salaries, etc., maybe bonuses and commissions, and then their wives or partners spend that in the local area. So that's one of the big drivers in that. But there's something in it for the local authorities, of course. They're trying to drive down their costs, so they feel that this also helps them. SMEs are generally responsive. I don't know if you've tried that, but for us, it certainly works to engage with local authorities. It should provide flexibility for them, so they've got perhaps more people to look at than they were aware was in the marketplace. And of course, it should provide quality. If you've got a quality product, you're local to a particular public sector organisation, it's something for you to definitely engage in. Has anyone got any public sector organisation as a client? It's not just us. Did I see it? Yeah, one or two. Miss McIntyre, good. They're a good customer. They're generally fair to deal with. Though in many tenders you have to accept their terms and conditions before you can progress. If you've ever used their software, a box comes up that says accept terms and conditions, and they enclose a copy of the terms which are normally attached to the software that we operate on their behalf. And you take yes, and then you just move straight on. If you say no, there's another box, and you can actually say what part of the terms and conditions you can't meet. And if it's small, you might win. If it's big, then obviously you don't. But at least the opportunity's there. They like to work with a contract, so there's a schedule of deliveries in there, which means that you know where you're going. You always get a purchase order. Not all of our clients provide purchase orders, but the public sector tend to. And in that, you should ensure that your milestones are clear for how you want the payment. For example, when we sell software, we invoice for the upfront cost for the software license. We then invoice them for training, which James is part of the team that do that. But again, we only charge for that once we've actually completed the training. And then when the system goes live and we put on a hosting charge for the year, we invoice them then. So that's clear from us. It should be clear from them, so everybody knows when they're going to get paid. And of course, Gordon Brown, bless him, one of the things he did do was look at the production of a correct invoice and insist that small companies like us get our payments fairly regularly. Again, I don't know if that's true of everyone, but we seem to do all right from it. And if you follow the above, you always get paid. I'll let you read that line for yourself. So how do you sell to the public sector? Well, we can help because we build portals. A portal is just a fancy name for a gateway. This is, instead of writing into the purchasing department, phoning them up, if they've got a procurement department and they give you a link that takes you to a portal, then that's where you start by registering your company. Has anyone registered on the Due North portal? On the NEPA one? Well, sorry, forgive me. You're right. It is the NEPA portal, but it's one that we host. And a gentleman at the back. James is going to show you how to register. It's fairly pain-free, ladies and gentlemen. It's easy. And if you don't worry, if you want to sell to them, you must register. There's no option. I've highlighted two on this slide. NEPO is the North East Purchasing Organisation. So I think that covers virtually every public authority from Northumberland right down to Teesside. So every organisation, every public sector, local authority, you can access them through there. Obviously, you can find this through our website, or if you made a note of it, it's nepoportal.org. Does anyone try to sell to the police and the fire services? Or would you like to? Yes. Okay.
Successfully got a £1 million contract out of
I'm so glad you arrived, madam.
But unfortunately, it took all of our lives to organise a £1 million contract, and we got not one answered word from them.
Really?
Yeah.
Don't mention the fire service in case there's anyone here from them. However,
South Yorkshire Police.
ah,
And we spent a long time with their portal doing a lot of work. Won a £1 million contract, got not one job of business out of them.
obviously I write the software that they advertise that on, but I'm not the South Yorkshire Police. But they certainly have been a customer of ours for 6 years now. Blue Light, we didn't choose the name, of course, but that's the one that we sold to Devon and Cornwall Police way back in 2004. And now we have 95% of the English and Welsh forces and fire and rescue services can be accessed through that single portal. So the great thing for you is if you want to sell to them, click on there and you can actually choose which fire and rescue service or police force you want to sell at, or you can just choose all of them and you're registered with every single one. So it's a great way to get a quick access to lots of opportunities. Right, what have you got to look for? PQQs and tenders, they're familiar terms to everyone in front of me? They are. They're not. Who said that? This young man. A PQQ is a pre-qualifying questionnaire. What local authorities try and do is if there's too many suppliers want to do business with them, they can't cope. So they send out a PQQ, basically. They won't say this, but the idea is to eliminate suppliers so they're left with a smaller pile to deal with. That's what a PQQ does. And then the tender, the ITT, the invitation to tender is the next document. We have learned a few mistakes over the years, which hopefully will help you if this is a new process that this gentleman, maybe some others, are going to try. You have to make sure you answer the question. Read the question, try and understand it, and then answer it. Get a second opinion so that you know that your reading of the question is exactly what they're looking for, because quite often it can be worded strangely and you answer it one way, in actual fact they were looking for another. And if you don't give them the answer that they want, then you get 0 points at that particular question and then they move on. And the highest number of points wins. They have a line which they draw, and if you've got a number of points above that, you go through to the next stage. If you're below that, you don't. So it's quite important. Be careful you give all the information they ask for. Again, if you read the question and you answer the first half, but not the second half, again, you score half points. And this is a lesson that we learned only this year. NEPO have been customers of ours for 6 years. They come out to tender to trawl the marketplace and they sent out a PQQ. We assumed that they actually knew everything about us, which they do. But they'd ask questions that we probably didn't answer completely. So do not assume that they know anything about you. Assume every time you do a PQQ or a tender for an existing customer, it's as if you've never met them before. so that your answers are thorough. If you learn nothing else from this presentation, believe me, that's really important. The person evaluating the PQQ might be someone that's new to the organisation and they genuinely don't know you. So again, if you've got an issue there, it could be a problem. And put in all the detail you can. I think if you put in too much, it's better than putting in not enough. I put this in italics and put a little star beside it. Be as competitive as you can on price. If you think, I won't put in my very best price, that's fine. But if you put in a higher price, you might lose out on cost, and all that good work that you could do in the next stage of the negotiation doesn't matter to you because you've been thrown out at this stage. So be competitive and only allow yourself a little tweaking on price. Alan was asked to do a case study in Juno, so I'm going to tell you a bit about us and how we have moved from where we were 6 years, 7, 8 years ago to where we are now. We were founded out of a company that went into receivership. So like a phoenix rising from the ashes, it can happen. We had one customer. Luckily, this was 2 years before I joined. I don't think I could have stood the pressure, but the boss obviously managed it. He's been there 10 years. With Durham County Council, they proved to be a great friend. The first thing is when we moved company name and tried a different product range, they stayed with us, which was really, really good. Not only that, but they guided us on how we were going to develop the product. We went from supplying IT hardware into building this software now that's got a footprint all over the UK, and I'll talk about the numbers later. So they helped develop the product. Once they developed it, bless them, they actually bought the software and said, we'll start using it. Again, really good friends. And then they introduced us to Gateshead Council, who at that time were running the North East Purchasing Organisation. Just a bit on NEPO, they actually started the organisation in 1976 on hard copy, just so that councils could actually collaborate and aggregate, drive down the costs, and hopefully make our poll tax, or whatever they call it now, not as high as it could be. When they spoke to us in 2002 then, we put that hard copy system onto our software, and it was launched in 2004. They didn't just hand it to us, they carried out an OJU tender. Is that a term that's familiar with everybody in the room? Right. OJU is the official journal of the European Union. And because we're now in the common market, once a goods or service gets above a figure around about 130,000, you have to advertise it in Europe. So if you want to sell tables and chairs and the order's worth 200,000, Spanish, Italian, French, German, etc. companies need to get an opportunity to pitch for that business. So once you get above those numbers, it gets quite competitive. So they sent out an OJU tender. I wasn't here at the time in 2004. I joined in 2006, so I can't remember who actually applied for that, but we won that from a very competitive field. I suppose the fact we were a local company and worked with Durham County Council didn't do us any harm. That live system then proved very beneficial because what we did is we talked to the Southwest in a partnership called the Devon Procurement Partnership. They did the same thing as NEPO, but down in Devon. Used the NEPO model, if you like, to build that. And then because we were talking to the councils, we found that Devon and Cornwall Police, who are based in Exeter, also liked it. So they jumped in the same bandwagon. And then we're not bad businessmen. When we found out that one police force liked it, we started talking to them all.